the failures of multiple agencies which contributed to the death of Zara Aleena. Zara was murdered while walking home from a night out by a man who'd been released from prison just 9 days earlier.
When I read
In the early morning hours of June 26, 2022, several cameras located around the streets of Ilford, northeast London, captured the ominous actions of Jordan McSweeney. After multiple failed attempts to follow his targets,
Zara Aleena was not a celebrity. She was not famous. She did not live a dangerous life. She was, in many ways, just like many of us, a young woman trying to build her career, stay close to her family, and live an ordinary, peaceful life.
He was going to go for a woman that night.
CCTV captured his movements as he staggered in pursuit of lone women. They hid, took refuge in public places, or simply tried to outrun him.
She believed in safety, she believed in justice, she believed the world was becoming a better place for women. But all it took was one walk home, just one short walk, and everything ended. This is the story of Zara Aleena, a 35-year-old law graduate with dreams of becoming a solicitor, a woman who was kind, thoughtful, ambitious, and full of potential. A woman who had every right to live her life in peace, but became the victim of a brutal and senseless act of violence in the very city she loved. What happened to Zara is not just a true crime story. It is a warning, it is a cry for change, and it is a reminder that the streets are not safe for everyone, especially women, no matter how many times we are told that they are. Zara Aleena lived in Ilford, East London. She had recently started a new job at the Royal Courts of Justice. She was excited about the future. She loved her family deeply, particularly her Aunt Farinaz, who described Zara as someone who saw the good in everyone, someone who tried to fix broken things, whether it was hearts, systems, or relationships. On the night of June 25, 2022, Zara did something many of us do without a second thought. She went out with friends. It was a relaxed Saturday night. They laughed, talked about life, and caught up after the chaos of the pandemic. She left the gathering early, just after midnight, because she had work the next morning. She chose to walk home. It was a 10-minute journey. She walked that route hundreds of times before.
He was going to go for a woman that night.
That walk would become her last. At around 20:17 a.m. on Sunday, June 26th, emergency services were called to Cranbrook Road, Ilford. Zara was found with severe head injuries. She was barely alive.
They hid, took refuge in public places, or simply tried to outrun him.
You have houses down there, you have CCTV down there, but this didn't put him off.
She had been sexually assaulted, dragged, and beaten to the point of near death. Emergency crews tried to save her, but she tragically died in the hospital later that morning. The attack was brutal, random, and incomprehensibly violent. The suspect was quickly identified. His name is Jordan McSweeney, a 29-year-old man with a long history of violent offenses. He had just been released from prison 9 days earlier. He was homeless, jobless, and angry at the world. That night, he roamed the streets of East London, searching for a victim. Surveillance footage showed him stalking multiple women before targeting Zara. She was alone. She was walking confidently. She was not drunk. She was not on the phone. She was simply walking home. McSweeney followed her for several minutes before attacking. He dragged her into a driveway and unleashed a savage, unprovoked assault. It was later revealed that the force of the attack was so intense that Zara's injuries resembled those from a high-impact car crash. But here is where the story becomes even more enraging. McSweeney should never have been on the streets. At the time of the attack, he was wanted by police for violating the terms of his release. He had missed probation appointments. He had shown signs of violent behavior. There were red flags everywhere, but nothing was done in time. The system failed Zara. It failed to monitor a repeat offender. It failed to protect a woman walking home. And it failed to prevent a tragedy that could have been stopped. When McSweeney was arrested, he initially denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. CCTV footage, DNA, witnesses, his own confessions. Eventually, he pleaded guilty to Zara's murder and sexual assault. In December 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 38 years. The judge described the crime as ferocious, sadistic, and without justification. But no sentence can fix what happened. No No number of years can undo the pain, the trauma, or the loss. Zara is gone, and the people who loved her are left asking why. Why was a violent man allowed to walk free? Why was Zara not protected? Why is it still dangerous to walk home? This is where Zara's story becomes bigger than just a case file. It sparked national outrage. Protests erupted. Politicians were questioned. Women across the country spoke out about their own fears about being followed, harassed, catcalled, or worse. This was not an isolated case. It was part of a pattern that includes names like Sarah Everard, Sabina Nessa, and countless others who never made the headlines. Zara's aunt, Farah Naz, became her voice.
I don't feel sorry for us, even though we had this huge gap in our lives, this huge hole, and our lives will never be the same. I'm sorry that she lost the rest of her life.
She stood before crowds and cameras, demanding change. She said, Zara believed that women should be safe. She believed that justice works. She believed in humanity. The tragedy forced the British government to review how high-risk offenders are monitored after release. It also sparked conversations about how women's safety is still treated as an afterthought in public policy. But change has been slow, and for many, trust in the system is broken. Here is what makes Zara's case even more heartbreaking. She was studying law to fix these very problems. She wanted to work in social justice. She wanted to help victims. She believed in rehabilitation, in fairness, in giving people a second chance. Ironically, it was that very system she believed in that failed to protect her. The details of the case are deeply disturbing, but they are important. Jordan McSweeney had 28 previous convictions for 69 offenses. His record included burglary, assault, and possession of weapons. He had been flagged multiple times as a risk to women. And yet, when he was released, there was no proper supervision. He was allowed to vanish into the streets. This is not about one bad person. This is about a broken system. The police admitted that there were missed opportunities. The probation service apologized. But apologies are not justice. Accountability is. And for many, there is still none. Zara's murder raises uncomfortable questions about how society values women's lives. Why are violent men given the benefit of the doubt? Why are women told to stay home, to dress differently, and to be careful, instead of holding offenders responsible? Zara did everything right. She was sober. She was alert. She was walking on a main road. And still, it was not enough. This is the reality many women face daily. And the tragedy is that it often takes a horrific event like this to spark attention, outrage, and reform attention that should have existed long before the crime ever took place. There is also the conversation around rehabilitation. Can violent offenders be reformed? What level of risk is acceptable? And who decides when someone is ready to re-enter society? McSweeney had been released under license. That means he was supposed to be monitored, checked, and evaluated, but none of that happened properly. He missed probation meetings, and nobody followed up fast enough. His behavior showed clear warning signs, but the dots were never connected until it was far too late. Zara's family has pushed for a full public inquiry. They want to know how this happened, not just for Zara, but for all the women who walk home alone and wonder if they will make it. Their fight is not just about grief. It is about legacy, Zara's legacy. Because Zara Aleena was more than a victim. She was a woman who believed in kindness, in helping others, and in standing up for what is right. Her death should not be her definition. Her life should. Today, there are campaigns in her name, petitions to improve public safety, to reform the justice system, and to hold institutions accountable for failures that cost lives. There are also scholarships being developed for women in law, inspired by Zara's own journey. Her story is now a symbol of how far we still have to go, of how fragile justice can be, and how important it is to keep telling these stories no matter how painful they are. Because as much as this is a true crime story, it is also a human story. A story of a family torn apart. A story of a community in mourning. A story of a woman who simply wanted to walk home and wake up the next day. Zara Aleena was loved, she was respected, and she was taken. So what can we do? We can talk about it. We can stop ignoring the warning signs. We can challenge the systems that enable these tragedies. We can demand better protection, better laws, better accountability, and most importantly, we can remember her not as a statistic, but as a spark that should have lit up the world but was instead stolen in the dark. Thank you for staying with this story. If you feel something stirring in your chest right now, good. Let that feeling grow. Let it turn into action. Share her story, speak her name, and never accept a world where something like this can happen again. This was the story of Zara Aleena, a sister, a niece, a friend, a future lawyer, a woman who believed in justice. Let us make sure the world listens. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe to Dark Case Diaries for more gripping true crime content.